So in this video, I want to talk about three common types of core memories of fearful avoidance and how they are a part of developing a fearful avoidance views around their independence, i.e., what the fearful avoidance subconscious comfort zone around their independence is. Now, these three experiences are not all fearful avoidance because you will find that there are definitely nuances in regards to people's attachment styles because we're talking about people and you can't just always fit people into a neat little box. While you will find certain universal outputs with this attachment style, such as the I will be betrayed or I cannot trust core wound, this particular attachment style is the most widely varying in regards to experiences, needs, and wounds, and is also known as disorganized attachment, which I think is a pretty fitting name. Many things can result in a fearful avoidant attachment style, so there are definitely widely varying experiences one person with a fearful avoidant attachment style can have to the next. But in general, these three types of core memories around the person's independence are very common experiences for a person with a fearful avoidant attachment style to have gone through, most of the time when they were quite young. If you are a fearful avoidant watching this and it resonates, you may have one, two, or all three of these. So let's take a deep dive into this. Real quick, if you're new here, my name is Sarah Whaling and I'm a certified life and relationship coach. I assist clients in changing their lives through addressing the subconscious mind to heal insecure attachment styles, heal core wounds, heal from wounding from relationships with individuals with personality disorders, and heal everyday pain points. Addressing problems at the root, the subconscious mind, is how we truly change the brain and heal. If you're interested in one on one coaching to get some extra or ongoing assistance with the topics that I talk about in these videos, please visit my website and get the ball rolling on the contact page. You will then be emailed my session information. So, jumping into today's topic, three common core memories surrounding a fearful avoidance view of their independence. Let's talk real quick about what the fearful avoidance view of their independence usually is. Fearful avoidants usually love their independence. They absolutely identify with it as part of who they are as a person. Independence is definitely a need of fearful avoidance. Now, every individual actually identifies with their needs to a large degree. We all look at our needs as part of our sense of self. This is why, if someone says anything that sounds negative about a fearful avoidance independence, it can really offend them or trigger them because when someone feels like their needs are threatened, they feel like their sense of self is threatened. That being said, if you're new to learning about this, of note, the fearful avoidant attachment style generally will also have an abandonment wound, which can be really surprising to hear if you're just now learning about this stuff and aren't fearful avoidant. But if you're fearful avoidant, there's a good chance you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. The fearful avoidant attachment style has anxious core wounds and dismissive core wounds. It is generally the attachment style with the most core wounds. So, in general, fearful avoidants love their independence and can also have an extremely strong I will be abandoned core wound. Not always, but quite often. Fearful avoidants often feel good when they are able to be independent, when they're able to take care of many things themselves, and they feel safe and comfortable in their independence. And their independence is generally regarded as a very happy place for them. I can attest to all of this because my original attachment style, as mentioned in many of my other videos, was a strong fearful avoidant attachment style. Of note, the other attachment style, which shares a great need for independence, is the dismissive avoidant attachment style. But these two styles come about this need with some nuances, and today we will be concentrating on the fearful avoidance formation of this subconscious comfort zone. Now, jumping into the core memory types that we are discussing today for the fearful avoidant. Number one, The first core memory type relating to the view of the fearful avoidant of their independence is that they went through something, often quite young, in which they were their own safe space. What could this look like? An example of this is maybe they grew up in a volatile household. Let's say they had a parent with explosive anger. A child can't just decide, today was the last straw, I'm moving out. However, the child in some cases can go off and be with themselves at points when they can manage that. Maybe the child felt a lot of unsafety and stress around a family member or family members, but then they went off to their room and they felt this relief. That forms the association deep down rooted in the mind that I am safe once I get away and can be by myself and with myself. Most of the time, fearful avoidants deal with consistent scenarios of trauma. This can be emotional abuse, rage from a parent with anger issues, or consistent boundary violations when they found themselves around certain people who were in close proximity to them growing up, to name a few. If the mind is seeking and seeking safety, and then finally, the only place it's found is when the fearful avoidant can go off solo with themselves, this gets hardwired into the fearful avoidant's subconscious and unconscious mind. Real quick, the subconscious is programmed through repetition and emotion. Emotion is what fires and wires neural pathways in our brain and what ingrains our beliefs. This is how core wounds are formed and also how we heal later on, and what forms our positive beliefs as well through good emotion. So, if a person is repeatedly dealing with feeling extremely bad around people in their life, but then repeatedly feels relief they are so desperately seeking once they're alone, this becomes a really, really deep rooted happy space or space of comfort for the person. This is why, as mentioned, later on in life, it can be so offensive if they hear something that sounds critical to them about their independence, because one, it is a deeply, deeply wired part of their sense of self. And two, they are unconsciously thinking, step back, that kept me safe. You have no idea what you're talking about right now. So, in summary, the first core memory we are discussing related to a fearful avoidance positive subconscious comfort zone around their independence is in a pivotal time in their life when they had to figure out where to seek safety. This was their refuge. Number two, a common core memory that fearful avoidants can have that help to form their positive subconscious comfort zone around their independence is they had a pivotal experience in which they first realized this feels really good to do this myself. And it will involve an experience having to do with their agency. Real quick, what is agency? The definition of agency is the concept of a person's ability to initiate and control their own actions, their capacity to influence their own thoughts and behavior, and their faith in their own ability to handle a wide range of tasks and situations. Now, this milestone is usually regarded positively for most children, but for a fearful avoidant, this experience can have a stronger surge of positive emotions in which they can actually note, wow, this is groundbreaking and I want to keep doing this. To understand why this experience can be regarded as something that feels so good to a fearful avoidant, we have to talk about what went into forming the fearful avoidant attachment style to begin with. The I am helpless, I am powerless, I am out of control of my own life. These are nuances of the same core wound, is a core wound that just about every fearful avoidant is going to have. And if it isn't relatively clear and near the surface of the subconscious, it is undoubtedly deeper in their unconscious. Why do fearful avoidants have this core wound? Because the essence of what generally forms the fearful avoidant attachment style is some form of trauma. It can be physical abuse, it can be covert narcissistic abuse, it can be emotional abuse, it can be dealing with someone very close to them, struggling with addiction, in which the child never really knows what version of the person they're going to get. It can be tons of boundary violations consistently over time, and this is just to name a few scenarios. When a child goes through especially consistent trauma, they feel like they can't really do anything about it. This forms the I am powerless, I am helpless, I am out of control core wound. Discovering your agency is a very empowering experience, and this can be really so equilibrating for someone with this core wound. I'll share real quick my own personal story of this type of core memory. I don't remember exactly how old I was, but I'd guess around 8 years old, maybe 9 or 10. But my brother used to take karate classes, and my mom and I would go watch the class. The karate studio was in one of my little town's only small shopping centers. There was a little mom and pop restaurant next door. I wanted a drink from it, and my mom just handed me the money to go buy myself a lemonade. So I went next door, handed them the money at the counter, and ordered my drink, and they handed it to me. And in that moment, I was thinking to myself, wow, this was just amazing. It was fun and a sense of comfort and empowering to do something myself. I walked back to the karate studio, and that became one of my core memories that really helped form my first association that I really liked taking care of things myself and just going and doing things myself. It can be, and often is, a small experience like that, but this type of core memory makes an incredible impact for many fearful avoidants. Another thing that I want to note real quick with this one is that a very useful tool in your healing toolkit in regards to core wounds will be reparenting, which is basically giving yourself what you did not get either from those close to you or from your environment and equilibrating your core wounds. This experience is a little bit of an example of this because if you have an I am powerless, I am helpless, I am out of control core wound, you would reparent and equilibrate through the behavior level of reprogramming by finding ways to empower yourself. Finding agency in different areas of your life does this. Number 3. A common core memory that a fearful avoidant can have in regards to their positive association to their independence and what amounts to their subconscious comfort zone around their independence is that they went through an incredibly painful experience all by themselves. Now, first and foremost, this can be so many things, but in general, what happened in this scenario is that in some pivotal way, they could not rely on anyone but themselves to fully understand whatever the experience was, or to fully or at all be there for them through it. Let's talk about some examples for a greater understanding on this one. And I'll give some very different examples, but the output is going to be the same. Example number 1, they were the family scapegoat. Now, real quick, if you know anything about narcissistic family roles, you know that the experience of one individual to the next in the family could be so incredibly different in a lot of pivotal ways. A golden child and a scapegoat that grow up in the same household can have a night and day experience of a narcissistic parent, and the output can be incredibly different wounds and subconscious programs. In the example of the scapegoat, they are isolated and honed in on because a narcissistic parent will dump their unworthiness into this child and absolutely attack them. The child, on some level, is aware that their experience is not the experience of the other family members around them, and quite often they grow up in a brainwashed environment where other members of the family system may recognize that certain components of this aren't right, but it is accepted as the way things are. This leaves the child that is being scapegoated feeling like no one can understand their experience but themselves and leaves them to themselves to learn how to deal with it by themselves. Another example of this core memory is abuse that is a secret. In a way, this relates to the other example because oftentimes outside of the household, a narcissistic parent will portray that they are parent of the year, which leads to a feeling even further that the scapegoat child is isolated and fending for themselves in this world. And that really becomes deep rooted. To give another example, though, we will take the horrible situation of sexual abuse. A child who is being abused in this way will often feel like they have to keep the abuse a secret. So this becomes a horrific experience that they are entirely obviously going through alone. Another example, maybe the fearful avoidant had a special relationship with someone that they didn't believe anyone else truly understood, and then they lost that person. This can actually be a common experience for adults as well as children. But their perception is that they could try to explain, but even if they have listening ears, the gravity of the situation for them is not something that another person is going to understand. And so they move through this loss perceptually or in reality completely alone. This common core memory is obviously not positive, and I want to talk real quick about how something so negative can help in forming the positive association that the fearful avoidant comes away with in regards to their independence. And the first thing that you need to know is that the subconscious mind is highly concerned with what is familiar. So even if it is painful, the mind, being a needs meeting machine, becomes accustomed to figuring out how to navigate and meet needs in familiar situations, and thus still ends up gravitating towards them. That being said, the next thing that you need to know is that out of this negative scenario is born something positive to the fearful avoidant, the belief that they can and will expertly handle things on their own and get through them alone. Well, I hope that this was insightful if you're not a fearful avoidant and wanted more context on why independence is quite frankly an incredibly important need for a fearful avoidant. And I hope this breeds more understanding for it. If you are a fearful avoidant watching this, I hope that maybe you are able to connect more dots on your healing journey. Again, everything in this video will not be every fearful avoidant, but it will be an overwhelming number that will relate to these. If you're watching this and you're interested in extremely detailed assistance in healing your insecure attachment style and becoming securely attached, I help my clients by tailoring individual plans for them and utilizing my professional and personal experience with what actually works so you can become securely attached and live the life that you deserve. Please send me a message via the contact page on my website if this is of interest to you. And finally, I want to thank you for being here and making it to the end of this video. Please give it a like if you found it helpful and share with anyone you think might find it helpful as well. Subscribe if you haven't yet and don't want to miss any future content. Thanks. Take care.